You're not entitled to a job, even though you're the perfect fit and you had everything on there.
I know you've recruited for a very long time, over 20 years of experience, but you've also recruited in a bunch of places.
Amazon, VMware, Microsoft, Uber, pre-IPO Uber, and then I just started working for a couple of startups. A recruiter at any organization is probably most likely working on at least 30 positions, open positions. Everyone thinks that that recruiter is going to look at every single resume in there. They don't have that kind of time. They're just scanning your resume and you are the perfect candidate for this position and still get rejected. Recruiters are on your side. They want you to be the person. So your job is to give the recruiter the ammunition. If you're getting that call from the recruiter, what that recruiter is telling you is like, you're a viable option. They've told you, we want you, you've met our bar, we need you. They're hiring you because they need you. And they told you that they want you, you're their top choice. That's the
Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Build, a podcast where my co-host and I talk about everything related to the software engineering career that doesn't involve writing code.
For this episode, we have Carlos Atek.
Yes, we have a special guest, Carlos.
Yeah, glad to be here, man. Appreciate you guys doing this. Very excited that you guys are doing this, actually. So really cool. I had a quick question. I know you're the interviewer, but
yeah,
what made you both decide to do this?
That's a good question. So we typically like to talk about the non-technical parts of tech. I would say recruiting is one of the very, very important aspects, which is one of the non-technical parts of tech that doesn't get spoken about, or at least the conversations around it are very one-sided. It's almost like a black box that we're basically trying to demystify. And so we thought having you on here with your over 20 years of experience would definitely be great to just get your perspective and see.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And I think your guys' timing is pretty good, to be honest with you. It's been a good 20 plus year run for engineers.
As we get started, I know you've recruited for a very long time. You mentioned you started in 99, but you've also recruited in a bunch of places.
Yeah.
Just for our viewers to get a sense of how vast your experience is.
Sure.
Do you mind going over those places?
I started, so my career is it's half agency recruiting. You know, they represent the company and then I say this cynically, but you're the inventory for them to make money, right?
Yeah.
So I did like 10 years of that. And then the other half of it, I want to get what's called corporate recruiting or internal recruiting experience, right? So I wanted to be more well-rounded. So I started working for, my first corporate recruiting company was Amazon. And then from Amazon, I went to VMware. And then from VMware, I was recruited to go work at Microsoft. And at this time, I've been in Seattle and working in tech for like 18 years. I've never, ever once wanted to go work at Microsoft.
That's right.
I only considered it because I was being recruited by it. But I was there for about over a year and some change. And then from there, I followed a leader over to Uber, pre-IPO Uber. And then I just started working for a couple startups. And then this brings me now to where I'm at, where I'm just independently being a career coach. And so now I'm just trying to help the job seekers, which I don't think the job seekers actually have any advocates for them. They think LinkedIn is for them. They think Indeed is for them or ZipRecruiter. It's not. That's for the enterprise companies. So we can talk about that as well too.
We're the products, bro.
You guys, you really are. And like those platforms are not your friends.
Oh, no.
They make it extremely competitive, and then it makes it extremely even harder for the recruiters because they're getting so many, candidates applying for positions, and these are very like solid candidates too. So you're competing against a lot of like really good candidates because the algorithm is sending it to the right people, right? And then the right people are applying, but there's too many of them, so the recruiters they can only look through a couple of them. So
yeah. That's a good segue into our first topic, which is, like you said, understanding what's happening behind the scenes when we see a job opening online, right? You see a job opening on LinkedIn, you see a job opening on Amazon.com, you see a job opening on these career sites. What does that process look like behind the scenes from a team or an org saying, hey, I need someone or we need someone, right? To then figuring out what skill set they should have. Does that come from you? Does that come from the manager? Basically, what does it look like to go from, hey, I need someone to that requisition on the job board, and then what then comes after?
Yeah. So, and have you guys ever been in a position where you've been the hiring manager?
I've been in a position where I was looking to hire someone to help me with something. But
But how about you?
No, but I've been like lead on a team multiple times that we've tried to hire people and
Okay.
my manager put stuff together.
So this is being recorded on January, so Q1, right? So coming into Q1, everyone probably has, each organization has what's called their head count, right? So the head count is like, it's been budgeted, right? And in some organizations, it's use it or lose it. So sometimes like in November, December, if people haven't hired, they try to hurry up and just make these hires. But anyway, so once someone has their budget, once they know what their head count is going to be, let's say a hiring manager in an organization will have what's called a rec. We call them requisitions. Those are what you guys know as like jobs. So once that rec opens up, either the hiring manager will do it or the talent acquisition or recruiter will do it. Just depends on how big the organization is, right? So you put that in. Sometimes the recruiter will work with the hiring manager and create the job description. Nowadays they're probably just using AI, right? And I always tell people, and this is one thing I'll tell everyone, like, job descriptions are Christmas wish lists, right? So what I mean by that is they'll put everything under the sun in there. And so sometimes when you look on that, people look at it, depending on who you are, you get intimidated by it. Like there's a lot. And so don't worry about that too much. Just know, and they're not all written well either. So some of it's super subjective. Like when they use words like strong this or strong that, how do you measure that objectively, right? So going back to what you're asking. So the requisition or job is opened up by the recruiter, hiring manager, and then we decide where we want to post it. And usually everyone's doing the same thing. You're going to post it on LinkedIn. They might use Indeed, definitely your website, and ZipRecruiter. So they'll post it all over the place. So you'll see the same job across different platforms. And then what they'll do is a lot of these organizations will use an applicant tracking system, as you know,
ATS.
called ATS. So some of the bigger ones are iSIMS, Greenhouse. I'm starting to see this one called Ashby come up, Lever. So they'll post it. So they'll post a position. And then what happens is the recruiter is doing two things. They're waiting for applicants to come in, but they're also proactively going out and looking for candidates. And they're doing that on LinkedIn. Right, they're doing that on Indeed or accounts. Back in the day, it was like Monster, or if you're really good, you just do Boolean searches. But I don't think any recruiter's doing that right now. Right, just us old school ones. So the issue with that is really the candidate pool is pretty vast, and the recruiter isn't just working on one position. This is the part that I really want everyone to understand. A recruiter at any organization is probably most likely working on like 20. If you're working for a big tech, you should be working at least 30 positions, open positions, right? Let's say we have 25 positions. Each of those positions has about 500, 600 applicants. Probably in this day and age with AI, it's probably like 1,000. Everyone thinks that recruiter is going to look at every single resume in there, and you think that every recruiter is going to look at your resume and go through it with a fine-tooth comb. They don't have that kind of time. They're just scanning your resume. And so the cleaner your resume is, the easier it is, bullet points, 1.5, 2 pages, the easier the recruiter can get that information. And then what we do is we try to find, 3 or 4, right, that look viable, screen them, send them on the hiring manager, move on to the next one. That's what a good, efficient recruiter will do.
Well, yeah, I have a follow-up question. Now, when you say screen them, do you mean before the recruiter screen with them, you send their resumes to the hiring manager?
Yeah, no.
Like, oh, this person is good to go, and then you can then have the recruiter screen.
So good question. So the recruiter is going to be efficient, the recruiter is going to try to look through as many applicants as they humanly can in the best time. So when I say screen, just reviewing. They're just reviewing. They're making a quick assessment on whether or not they're going to reach out, email, or call this person, set them up for an actual one-on-one recruiter screen. We'll call it screening. So resume reviewing, they're just looking to see who they want to actually do a one-on-one screening with, right? So there's that step. And once I figure that out, I'll do my reach outs. If the person applied, then obviously it's going to be easier for me to get them on the phone to talk to them. But if I'm reaching out to a passive candidate who has no interest, then I got to be I'm already doing the sell. So after I screen, let's say I screen 3, all 3 look good. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to find like 2 or 3 things that I can take to the hiring manager and convince the hiring manager to interview this person. So I'm just trying to find signals. Like, does this person have, let's say it's a front end. Does this person have the technology? Does this person have like global enterprise experience? Does this person have like backup, or startup experience? Have they collaborate? Just real quick, I'm just looking for all that. They will try to tell you that they no longer like just focus on like education pedigree or, company pedigree. It's a lie. Like you can't help it, right? You know, it's going to be an easier sell to your manager, right? And even like numbers of years of experience. Like we know that, 2 or 3 years at a certain tech company that gives you a lot of exposure is better than like 2 to 3 years at another company where you don't get exposed to anything, right? And then the flip side of that, if you're at a startup, you can touch all facets of the software development life cycle. So after I screen that person, I go, this person looks good, send them on to the hiring manager. The hiring manager then will screen them, and then we'll do more of like a technical evaluation a little bit, right? And then if that goes well, then they're going to be moved to the next phase, which would be the final loop, which an actual tech organization usually does 5 interviews, right? Recruiter screen, we don't really count that, but that does count. The hiring manager, and then the rest of the loop, right? And so then they usually do a debrief. A good organization that has a more sophisticated, like they'll do a debrief where everyone gets together. You kind of do a round robin, and then you try to make a hiring decision from there, right? Here's the part that a lot of people don't understand. There's this phrase that we use called disposition, right? And disposition, what that means is if I have 500 applicants and I've already gotten, the candidate that is going to move through the process, gets an offer, accepts the offer, and then now I got to close it out. So I still have those other candidates there. They're just waiting for any kind of feedback. I'm not going to go through every single one and send them a personalized message. I'm going to select all using the ATS, and then I'm going to send them all a very generic canned message. And they do that because they've been told that there's a policy where we want to be very careful not to be too specific around the feedback because they're afraid to get sued or be liable for discrimination or something like that, which I find very at first I was poo-pooing. I'm like, that's no one's going to sue a big tech company, but now I'm starting to see like Instagram ads where they're like, we should sue more. Here's how you can sue these companies easier for like discrimination. I'm like, oh, you don't want that because now you're never going to get any kind of feedback whatsoever, right? So you send it like you hit select all, and what you're doing, you're dispositioning them off that position.
Speaking of that, as it relates to the recruiter phone screen, so the phone call that you have with them trying to access their skills, sometimes people don't make it through those, but in their head, they're like, man, like everything on my resume matches everything that you're asking for, right? But it's also not the fact that their resume wasn't seen because you clearly have a phone conversation with them, right? What are some things that happen in the back end there where it's like, I look like I'm an awesome fit for this role, but I'm not moving on to the next step?
Yeah. So are you saying they apply and they're like, if they see this resume, they're going to select me?
Yeah. Well,
or do they see it, or you're saying like they do see my resume, but they rejected me?
They see my resume, right? I have a phone call with them.
Oh, okay.
Right, with the recruiter.
Okay.
And then I speak to the recruiter, and then everything, like the conversation sounds absolutely amazing. In some cases too, they also have like interviews that go really, really well, and they're just not selected, right? So there's rejections that happen at different level, right? We've spoken about the rejection that happens where no one even sees your resume, right? There's a rejection that happens when after the phone call with the recruiter, where maybe you guys pick up some signals that, oh, this person is not a good fit for this role. There's the one that happens after the technical interview. What are some reasons that you've seen where someone who thinks they're an absolutely great fit for this role and have had absolutely amazing interviews don't get past to the next round outside maybe them picking someone who they thought was better, right?
I was a recruiter for an agency. After that candidate interviews with like either the recruiter or the hiring manager, and they come back to me and I go, I crushed it, I did so good. I go, that means this guy bombed. So whenever someone comes back to me and says they did really well and they did good, I go, this is not going to go well for them. And so and it's weird because and people who are in this industry know what I'm talking about. It can be so let's just I'll tackle the recruiter screen. So for the recruiter screen, as a career coach coaching job seekers, I tell them don't get too stressed out about the recruiter screen. I go, recruiters are very basic. So I say this all the time. Recruiters are very basic. You just got to spoon feed them information. They're going to ask you 2 questions for sure. Walk me through your work history. why our company? So just have those questions ready. And then they might ask you one or two like behavior questions. What that recruiter is trying to do is they're trying to get signals. I call them sound bites. They're trying to get like 3+ sound bites to go back to the hiring manager and convince the hiring manager to interview you. So if you don't have those things, and if the recruiter doesn't feel confident that they can sell you to the hiring manager, they'll reject you, right? And recruiters are on your side. They want you to be the person. They want, if you're getting that call from the recruiter, what that recruiter is telling you is like, you're a viable option. I think I'm right about you. Please prove me right. So one thing I tell people now, if the recruiter asks you if you have any questions, instead of just asking like superfluous, like useless questions, ask the recruiter this question. Go, based upon our conversation today, okay, is there anything that's missing that doesn't make you feel confident to move me on to the next phase? If there is something missing, can we talk about it now? And maybe I can help you that. So your job is to give the recruiter the ammunition. So that's the question that you ask the recruiter. And some recruiter like, oh, I'm not going to share that with you. Some are really pompous. Some are just like, or some recruiters are built differently. So there's they're not monoliths. So you have to take control of that, and you have to understand what's happening. So if you get rejected, it's because the recruiter didn't get the signals that they needed, right? Or it's just your personality. If you think you're the perfect fit and you had everything on there, it could be preferential, right? This person's going to be too timid to deal with this hiring manager, or this person didn't have enough collaboration. There's something that's missing. Even though you think everything's perfect, you're not entitled to a job. So that's the thing that people have to understand. And they have to, if they go into like, I'm not entitled to this job. They don't have to give me this job, right? Even if I am a perfect match because of the, apples to apples, like bullet points to resume, right? They don't have to give you the job, and there could be somebody else, right? So that's the recruiter screen. And then once you get to the hiring manager screen, it could be at that point they're trying to assess signals for technical acumen, collaboration, really trade-offs. Like, how do you think? What kind of decisions do you make, right?
And the signals that you get from there are those from the round robin technical interview?
No, it's just like if it's just with the hiring manager or a staff member. If the hiring manager can't be there, it would be like a staff member. So what that second interview should be, I always go, you better have someone from your team interviewing, because if this person makes it to the final round and they bomb technically, you're going to blame me. So I tell them, have some skin in the game. And so that when they go in there and this person bombs technically, I go, it was that guy, right? I go, your guy did this. So either you guys don't know how to evaluate from a technical standpoint, or you guys need to change that. And that's okay. So that second level is more like, let me get some signals. What are the risks of this person? Once it gets past the hiring manager, then you get the full loop, and everyone does it differently. Now with the age of Zoom and post-pandemic, they're breaking it up like one by one. Before you'd be like, you come in, you have a full day, right? And and I kind of want to ask you guys about like on-site interviews, and you guys feel comfortable with those anymore? Because I'm starting to, because most of these interviews are now like online, right? And so there's a whole problem around that. So go back to your question. So you pass that, and then when the final loop, what should happen is that each of those people, let's say you have like four left, each of them should be assigned a competency, right? The specific one, and they'll usually base it on like whatever every company has a core values. Amazon has leadership principles, right? Leadership principles is how are the behavior, the things that you do to basically exemplify or get to those core values. Or core values, like, this is like our mission, this is our goal, this is kind of this is how we want to represent. And everyone has like a variety of different ones, right? So how I prepare people is like, find out what their core values are, take their core values, and then look at their job description. And then now you can just pop both of those into like a chat GPT or my Haddox GPT and go create behavior questions from this, right? And then what that does is they're going to evaluate you based upon how your example manifests or best exemplifies this, right? So let's say you have like the debrief where the recruiter, the hiring manager, and all the other interviewers, this is just like ideally what should happen. It doesn't always happen like this. Sometimes they're just like, hey, this person sounds good, let's go with it. Hire. 4 hires can become like four pluses, and 1 negative can be a no hire, or right, or 4 negatives and then 1 plus. That person can turn that around, just depending on the individual like advocating. So I've seen it happen like both ways, and we can talk about that kind of as an example. But That's how it happened. Like you can still have a person who can be hireable, but then they don't hire you because of like one or two things.
Yeah, that's the next part I want to speak on, right? Where it's almost like risk management in some sort, or in some way where in those round robin decisions where we're talking about, okay, this person is good at this clearly, but maybe there's something that they're not good at, and it's almost like a guess, right? So what kind of happens in those places where you're trying to gauge whether or not to move forward, even though some signals are clearly there, right?
Yeah. So I'll give an example. So when I was at Amazon, we had Amazon has like a bar raiser who's kind of like the seasoned like leader of the interview process or the debrief, and so we had, bar raiser was yes, and then there's like 3 other yeses and one kind of no, and that person said, yeah, technically it was good, examples were great, but I was getting the sense that they were just always focusing on like one project and one example. And then everyone was like, yeah, they would only give us like one example and they didn't have any other examples. And so that became problematic for everyone. If they're interviewing individually and not biasing each other by talking in the hallways between interviews, they don't have those until you get to the debrief, right? But everyone kind of has like, there's something off about this, right? But you don't know until you get into that interview. And it could be like this, this person had a very acerbic communication style. It seems like they're very accomplished, but it looks like they like to be like a one-person show, or they didn't do a lot of cross-collaboration. So when you're in that group dynamic and everyone's having a objective discussion, you'll start hearing some trends like that people thought were kind of like yellow flags, but 4 yellow flags becomes a red flag, right? Does that make sense? Yeah. So everyone didn't want to they want to over-index on that one little thing, but then when you see that it was a problem for everyone, right? Then the bar raiser goes like, is this person going to fit into organization? We're very collaborative, and they seem like they're very independent, and they like to make decisions in a vacuum by themselves. And those are some things that can happen, or they're very technically strong in like one area, and then people are starting to see signals in certain areas, but not that big of a deal, right? And so that's how those things can happen. And then inverse of that, where you have like 4 no's and then one strong yes, and then that yes will offset all the concerns, right? So that can happen as well too.
Yeah, I think like he's talking about sometimes when I'm on like a debrief, right? Sometimes you see like somebody says, "Hey, I saw this," and then if nobody else saw something to counter it, it might stick. So somebody might say, "Hey, like the way you described something was maybe dismissive."
Yeah.
But like one person experienced that. Nobody else says, "Hey, but well, like like I asked him a bunch of questions and it wasn't that way." If nobody comes up and says anything against you, that thing sticks.
Yeah, I'll give you a quick example. So when I was at my startup, I was the only recruiter. 4 very senior interviewers, like across different levels, principal, director level, whatever. And then a young lady, she was, I think she was like the product person, right? Yeah. So, and then the candidate was very, I don't know if they were like, I don't know what it was. So the feedback was, it's good technically, but it was just super quiet. Wasn't very, wasn't very wasn't a strong communicator. So everyone said that. And then the young lady who just recently taken like, I don't know what kind of training she took, but she goes, well, I just took this training, and sometimes we're gonna get candidates, especially in engineering, where they're introverted or neurodivergent. That's the first time I heard her bring that up. So she brought up this person, I believe, could be like a neurodivergent individual, so they're not gonna be so like whatever, like extroversion, whatever. And so she turned that whole panel around, and I learned something from it as well too. And I don't even know if that happens anymore, but because of the climate that we're in. But I thought that was one of those things where when you're that's a good company you want to be with. And I love that company because they gave her space. She felt comfortable to interject with these like senior leaders and spoke on behalf of that individual. And none of them were even thinking about that. And that's a great environment that you want to work in. So
that's a good question.
Yeah, and that goes back to like, sometimes like everything could be perfect and there is just one person that interviewed you and the person was off. But like on both sides, you kind of want to make it a good experience and make sure the recruiter, like, even if like a lot of, like, even for example, you do an engineering screen as an engineer, for example, somebody interviews me technically, and maybe I missed one question or something. That's not always like a be all end all, because if you pass the other technical stuff, but this person on the other hand that asked you the question that you failed got some other positive signals, like he can still speak for you and help you. Like it might
Yeah.
it might be a plus for some other things, right? So it's not like, hey, I bombed the question, so therefore like the whole thing was a waste of time.
Yeah.
And like sometimes you start to spiral because they're like, oh, I'm feeling this question, and then you spiral and they just make it bad for everybody. But then you're shooting yourself in the foot on both sides.
I was gonna say, I literally have a perfect example for that. When I was getting recruited into Microsoft, there was a 15-minute technical interview screen. I was a college student. They came on campus, they didn't have time, right? 15 minutes in and out. You come in, they ask you this lead code medium to easy question. Mind you, I'm not studying lead code because I'm a college student. I'm a senior, I have, stuff. And she asked me, I really remember the question, how do you find a cycle in a linked list? One of those, and the right way was to use 2 pointers and then you keep going eventually if it's odd or if it's even, they'll come together. But I didn't know. And so 10 minutes in, I was cracking my head and she was like, oh, okay, let's just come back. And then she looked at my resume and then she saw that I was working on this project. And then she was like, tell me more about this project. And I was like, oh, I was working on it and I mentored a freshman at the same time where I worked on one half and he worked on the other half. And she was like, oh, tell me more about that. And I was like, well, he was looking for a project to work on and I figured it would be a great one, especially seeing that it's a big project. It'll take me way too long to do my part, like do everything on my own. And then she was like, okay, sounds good. That's great. And I moved on to the next part. Right? Even though I didn't get the technical question right. And so then after that point, when they then flew me here on campus to do the full interviews that I had obviously done very well on, and then like I prepared for. And so just back to the point where he made, where it's like sometimes one question isn't the end be all end all, right? Like they could be looking for other signals.
But what you got was a good recruiter, right? So what you got was a good recruiter that is looking for other signals, right? And so the problem with job seekers is you don't know what level of recruiter you're going to get. So I tell every job seeker, you don't know who's going to be looking at your resume.
So in that case, what are some, from your experience, right? Say, I know the technical things are what you mostly look for, what you guys are looking for, but what are some other signals that engineers don't necessarily portray or show that could work on them, right? In my case, it was me mentoring a freshman. I was a senior, right? So what are some signals that could get lost?
So when I get this question, like, can you help me prepare for FAANG companies, right? So I go, what does that mean to you, right? What does that mean to anybody? So my definition of that is they have this ideal of what a FAANG company is. But I'll tell you, like, I go, okay, let's assume these are like global enterprise organizations. We're going to be interacting with different business units. So I always look for cross-functional collaboration, right? And then when they collaborate when they do this, they don't put cross-functional collaboration because I go put that on there. And then also, who are those? Sales, marketing, etc. I need to know that you can work with different business units. And then I also look for who are you in the room with, right? So if you're in the room with like people who write leadership, I'm like, yeah, but is that a manager, senior, executive? And a lot of times I can tell that it might be an executive, but they don't write that. And so I can tell, and then I ask, but you're not going to always get that opportunity that someone can tell and then know to ask. So you need to put in there, like, worked with, VP of engineering, because if you're at a startup and I see that you work with leadership, and go, is that a C-suite? Most likely, right? But if you don't write that, the recruiter that doesn't know how to assess that will miss that. So executive stakeholder engagement, right? Is there an example of, data-driven decision making, right? Dealing with, ambiguity, right? And then, bias for action. These are very like Amazonian like leadership principles, but everyone calls it different things. Like, are you proactive? Do you go outside of your own job description to do things? How do you help other people, right? Problem solving, like, how do you communicate problem solving? Like, you describe trade-offs, right? And then what are the scope of things that you've done? So if I see the word migration. Everyone just thinks it's just like moving something to something like it's going from a legacy system to a modern system. And then what was the, what was all the, getting, that's a lot of layers to that someone tried to squeeze into one bullet point. We're looking for people who have been in friction. There's tension. They've, it wasn't easy. They overcame things. How flexible were you? How many hats do you have to wear, right? Little things like that, right? So.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So one of the things you've mentioned is like, the person's like, hey, this person's resume is perfect, but like, have they worked at this scale? Have they worked with VP level people, or have they only worked with like maybe managers and stuff? So like, what kind of things that can somebody do in an interview to communicate that, hey, I've executed projects at levels like where it's like P0 for the whole company. What kind of thing can somebody do?
Yeah, I think they don't want to know that you did this thing and it solved the problem. They do want to know that, but they want to know how you think. So when you're telling them that you're making a decision, sometimes when you tell them the decisions you don't make, that's also giving them signals on your competence level. Yeah. Like, I was thinking about this or that. I went with this because of that. And I'm glad I did because it worked. Because if I did that, it would have delayed it even further. Yeah. So when you can describe in one story how you approached a situation, how you identified the problem, how you went out and procured collaboration, how you made a decision, and then if there's ambiguity involved, describe the ambiguity and then talk about what you did to mitigate that ambiguity so that you can make a decision. And then when you decided to make a decision, talk about the trade-offs. What were the trade-offs of, like, what are the risks and rewards of you doing that? It sounds basic, but it's not, because people don't do it, right? So to answer your question, and then talk about the impact. So that's something I see it on resumes a lot. I did this and I did this. So what? Did you have any impact on the thing that you did? Yeah. And also, why did you do it? Why did it matter, right? So that's the problem piece. Yeah. And I tell people, like, before I even read to the right of the action verb, I'm gonna ask myself as a recruiter, like, why did they do this thing? Yeah. And what were they doing it for? And then what was the impact of that? And then I keep reading. If I don't see those things, then I go, okay, that's missing. I'll ask that in the interview screen, right? So to go back to your original question, so it just has to be a very robust response, and it has to really show all those different things if you can. And because you want to be multidimensional in terms of like how you provide a response, right? So I did this here, and this was the result, is usually how they'll answer a question.
I think the clearest thing I'm getting from you is that, like, the recruiter is an advocate for you.
For sure.
You want to give them all the ammo. Think about, like, hey, how do I... So something like Carlos has spoken about multiple times is APR or SPAR. APR is action, problem, and result. Right? You want to give them in a bullet point, maybe not every bullet point like you mentioned, but you want to give them, hey, I took this action because of this problem, and then this was the result. But super clear gives them the ammunition that they can then take to... Because imagine, like, you're an hiring manager and somebody comes, hey, this resume is good. Why is it good? Well, now they have to defend why they pick your resume to come present it.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. So absolutely. So, like, I like what you're saying. Like, they have to be... Like, that's what's going to happen, right? So you as a job seeker, your interaction with the recruiter, you don't need to be intimidated by the recruiter. Like, you just need to make sure, like I said, like, the recruiter has to understand why you're a fit, and you got to make sure that they understand. That's your job. So you just have to make sure, okay, what's the best story that will give them the best example of how I am the highest performer in that particular competency. So you have to interpret the main competency they're asking, and that's what your job really is in that interview, right? But you can't be just going there winging it. And sometimes you undersell yourself and you don't know what your stories are. So it's good to get your stories together and have them in a bank. And you should always be doing this, even when you're happy where you're at.
Yeah,
especially when you're happy where you're at, right?
I want us to get an understanding of what happens when a candidate gets an offer, right? What does that negotiation process look like? They come to you with $150,000 offer. As whether you're the recruiter, you carry $150,000 and then you go give them. How much do you have to wiggle from your perspective? Is it? I've heard all sorts of things. I've heard that you have like a certain number where beyond that you have to go ask for permission. You're also trying to save the company the most money as possible. I'd love to understand what happens from the recruiter's perspective when a recruiter gives you an offer.
You know what's interesting? I'm just listening to you go through what you think is happening,
Yeah.
like with those. So let me ask you both a couple of questions first, because this is very interesting. Just like how you opened up with that, those are all like parts of the things that people think is happening, right? So when you got your offer, Netflix, and when you got your offer at Zillow, did you guys have anybody advocating for you? Did you go around like searching for help on how to, like, when you got the offer, were you excited? Were you like, I'm just gonna take it, or did you negotiate?
I could go. So when I got my Microsoft offer straight out of college, I didn't negotiate. I signed that thing as
Yeah. Take it or lose it.
I was like, listen,
Take it before they figure
how
things.
much?
Yeah.
I think what was also crazy at the time is the sign-on bonus, right? It's like it's the first time you're seeing all that money cash coming to you at once. I was like, did they make a mistake, right? And so I didn't even believe it was real until it hit my account, and I was like, man, you know. But I didn't negotiate my Microsoft one. I heard people negotiated. They didn't budge on the base, but they could give you more stocks. They could give you more stuff, right? I know there are some things that you could negotiate on that aren't like money, and I would love if you could give us some insights into that too. But when I got my Netflix one, I definitely negotiated. Now Netflix was harder to negotiate with because they already pay like top of market, and so what I did was my negotiation tactic there was I only had them as an offer because I wasn't looking, but I just said, yeah, I'm that guy, right? Like, like, this is who I am. This is how much you're gonna have to pay me if you really want me to leave this company. Mind you, it was more than double what I was making in my previous place, right? But I still just had to like hype myself up and like talk myself through it. But I would love to hear your part. Okay.
Well, at Zillow, I had to negotiate.
Okay.
I was like, hey, like this amount looks good, but like you could do. I forgot this was like, so I've been at Zillow for 6 years, so I'm like super rusty. So I interned and then I got my offer at the end of my internship.
Oh, okay.
Oh, and then I think I was talking to some other interns that just had a first degree.
Yeah.
And the amount was like really, really close between how much I got offered and how much they got offered.
Yeah.
I was like, this doesn't make any sense. I have 7 years of experience.
Yeah.
Before so it's like, no, this amounts don't make no sense. So I was like, hey, like, I don't think this amount actually correctly reflects. And I was like, hey, this is my credits. Like, I'm in grad school doing machine learning. I have 7 years of experience, blah, blah, blah. I don't think like this offer actually like is commensurate compared to what I know you're giving like people that just finished like their first degree. So that I think that was the main thing.
So you went from Microsoft to Netflix was your kind of like first negotiation.
It was my first negotiation.
And then from internship to FTE role was like kind of your first negotiation.
Yes.
Yeah. So you guys are the next one's gonna be your real negotiation. So that's gonna be the real one where you definitely call me. Did you give them reasons as to why you wanted the money?
I did. I think.
Okay. Stop there.
Yeah.
Did you were giving them reasons why you wanted them more money? Okay.
Yes.
Let me ask you this question. Why? Why didn't you just go, I want more money?
I'm an engineer. You have to justify stuff.
Yeah. It's like,
I know. I think I'm taught. Okay, that's a really good question because I think like I feel like you can't just say something. You have to say a why.
Yeah, there almost has to be a reason, right?
Is how I like. That's like my. That's how I've been taught. I don't even know if I'm wired, but that's how I've been taught all the years. You don't just say stuff. And like, I think,
you know what I mean? You just can't say because.
Yeah.
Right? Well, because it's like there's some situations where it's like, oh, I want you to go out with me. I don't want to. Right? Why? Because I don't want to go out, right? But this is one of those people that you're talking to, right?
How did Uman take like compensation negotiation to dating?
Right? You know what I mean?
It is similar in some ways.
But it's like,
it's a negotiation.
When you're negotiating, it's like you're like, all right, these are the cards that I'm dealt, but maybe I'm wrong, but I'm guessing we're not supposed to do that. I don't know.
No, it's not that. It's one. I like the fact that you both said, because we're engineers and we always have to give a reason. So that's interesting. I never thought about that. Let me ask you this question. So sometimes when people come, I'll explain why. When you're trying to get a raise or when you're trying to get more money, sometimes people are like, I need this because I'm trying to take care of my family because we're moving this location. So they give you all these reasons, and these are very personal reasons, right? Mm-hmm. And then if the company says no, right, to those very personal reasons, then what? They don't give a shit about you or your family, right? So then you have to really accept that.
Yeah.
Why can't it? So I always tell people when they ask for more money, they don't don't have to give a reason. And the reason I say that is because the reason that they need to give you more money is because you just set your value. So what you're doing by giving them all these reasons is you're trying to defend your value to them. And then they have to accept that they believe that that's your value. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? The thing is, they've already extended you the job offer. And what does that mean? That means they evaluated you according to their hiring bar. And they said that you're the top choice. You're their number one choice for this position. You want to give them a reason for a raise. You don't have to. They told you you're the top choice. You have another signal because you have another offer over there. And you never have another offer over there. It doesn't, the company doesn't dictate your value. You dictate that value. And so if you give them all these reasons and they say no, right? Are you going to say like, oh, I'm no longer worth that much to myself? Why? The only reason that you have to give to them is like, you told me that I'm your top choice and you told me that you wanted to hire me. So that means you have leverage. So it takes them 2 months, maybe 3 months to get to offer. And they had to get through all these other people, right? Now, there's probably not a second choice yet. So they probably rejected a lot of people to get to you, right? So then they have to start that whole process over, okay? Unless there's a pipeline. So you have to understand that you have leverage at that point. And a lot of people don't really understand that. That's your leverage. You think I have to have another offer to have leverage. No, that's just more leverage that you have, like another option. They've told you, we want you. You've met our bar. We need you. They're hiring you because they need you. And they told you that they want you. You're their top choice. That's the only leverage you need. When you're countering, right? What is your fear when you counter? What do you think is going to happen? Like, honestly, what do you think is going to happen?
Depending on how much you ask for, they could renege the offer.
Okay, why would they do that? Why would they renege the offer and start all over because you're asking for more money? Does that seem logical?
It doesn't. It doesn't seem logical, but that's a fear that I know I had when I was at Microsoft. Right? When I was getting into Microsoft.
Yeah, so many people have that fear. So you're not like a dissenter. You're not like an outlier in that. So that's something that everyone. So this is why I want to kind of talk about it. So thanks for bringing up offers. So they're gonna say. So this is what I tell all my clients. I go, here's the thing. Like once you get to the offer stage, you have the leverage. They want you. They don't want you to say no. Okay. When you counter, what you're telling them is, great. Here's how I value my work. Here's what's going to cost you to work. I mean, think about yourself as a contractor. You're telling somebody you want $60 an hour. They want to offer you 30. You're like, no, right? You can say no to that, right? Because you're like, that's not worth my time. So why wouldn't you say no to that? Because that also shouldn't be worth your time. But they also told you you have a certain set of skills that we want. They're gonna say yes to your counter, or they're gonna say no, or they're gonna say we're gonna meet you in between. So if they say yes, then they have to go back and redo the offer and come back to you. If they say let's meet somewhere in between, they'll meet you between their original number and your number. If they say no, then it puts it back to you to go, okay, I'll either accept this or not accept this. They won't take back the offer unless you're unreasonable and you keep saying, you keep like renegotiating, right? So once they say, if they haven't said final offer, it's fair game to negotiate.
So is trying to think about what that looks like in practice, whether it's over email or over like a phone call. We get like hey, I've seen the offer, right? You say you're the recruiter. You send me an email saying this offer, and I see the offer letter, and it's $150,000 for you, for example. And then we get on the phone, or I just say, hey, Carlos, hope you're doing good. Wanted to talk to you about this offer. I see it's at $150,000. I was thinking a number closer to 210.
Yeah. So.
And that's it?
Yeah, everything should be, don't do it on the phone. Okay. Like when you always ask for everything in writing. Yeah, okay. Yeah. And then you take your time to think about it and go, this is a great offer. Still definitely excited about this opportunity, right? Let them know.
All the good stuff.
And then you go, here's my counter. Just tell them, here's my counter. Don't say I'm thinking about this. If you guys got to, but what you can do though is if you have a very aggressive number, you say, I want to counter with this. If you can get me this offer, I'll accept today, right? You give them something. You give that recruiter something, because the recruiter, if it's a big counter, then the recruiter has to go back and get approval. Your job for yourself is, I just want to go to work. I don't want to have this over my head. If I don't counter and I get there and then I'm now working 50 hours a week, 60 hours a week, and no one's really giving me recognition, first thing you think about is like, I should have asked for more money.
Yeah.
Right? And you probably still think that, it's like, and then when you get it, you're like, should I have asked for more? So
there were times when I was not even like in recruitment. There are times when I do like sponsored videos, and then they come to me with like a number, and then I'm like, oh, and I add like maybe 2 or 3K to them, and they're like, sure, and I'm like,
yeah. Yeah. Well, because they they see value in it, and and it's like. But that's why you go, if it's a number that you think you should get versus like, should I have asked for more? Those are two different things, right? Just because the negotiation was easy doesn't mean you should have asked for more money.
Yeah.
You're the one that told them what you wanted. So again, actually you're bringing up my point.
Yeah. Yeah.
You dictated your value. Yeah. And then when they accepted, you're like, am I worth more? Yeah. That's what he just said, right?
Yeah.
That's he said. Look, like, so that was on you, right? So it's always on you, and no one should value you more than you value yourself, and no one should dictate your value except you, as long as you have a high value of yourself. Some people have a lower value of themselves, and they'll just take the offer because they don't want it to go away, right? So when you're negotiating out of fear or uncertainty, you're going to take it just because you're glad to be at this company. But here's the thing. Once you get into that organization, it's going to be so hard for you to get back to the number that you originally thought of or give yourself a raise. So you want to give yourself that raise at the offer stage, and you want to get it with the thought process, like, I might not be able to kind of like, level up for a while. I don't know what's going on. So get all that money so that all you have to focus on is just doing the work. Right?
Yeah.
Right?
So I think it's a great segue into the components of the offer, right? So the traditional offers here in North America, they are your salary, which is your base pay. There's a bonus, like a sign-on bonus that they give. Some companies give, some don't. And then there's stock, right? Stock options that vest over X amount of years. Different companies have different investing schedules. But how do companies typically see those options? I know some places like to throw stocks way more because sometimes they could give you a lot of something that has no value.
Yeah. So we're talking about a couple of different things. Let's just talk about like a standard offer with a public company. Okay. Yeah. So a standard offer with a public company will be, you have your base salary, right? And then you'll have, so when a recruiter asks you what you want to make, there's 2 numbers you give them, right? So a lot of times what you'll probably do is like, give me fair market value. Let's go through the interview process. So if you ever do that to a recruiter, stop, right? So whenever a engineer or a candidate, whenever I ask them for a number, like, give me, it's the range sounds good, and they won't give me a number. I won't get off the phone until they give me a number, because a lot of people think that the first person to give a number loses, or they don't want to undervalue themselves or whatever. So they don't want to give a number. They're just uncomfortable giving a number. So I go, okay, what if I came to you with 130,000, knowing that they probably want something like around 160 or whatever. I go, no, that's too low. I'm like, great. What about 150? They're like, too low. I'm like, great. I'm gonna do this all day until you give me a range. They're like, okay, I got you. Because what's gonna happen is I'm gonna come to you with an offer, and you're gonna think I'm lowballing you, but I'm going into this in the dark. So if you just give me at least a range, it's fine. I go, you're not going to lose anything out of it. Just, you want me to give me a wide range? That's fine. I just know that this is like, you'll probably want the top end of that range, right? So I at least understand where your head's at. It gives them something to work with, right? And so what's happening now, though, a lot of recruiters, and so a lot of my clients, I have these emails where they don't talk to the candidate about what that candidate wants till almost near like the finish of the interview process. Yeah. So, and if it's all good signals and they want to hire that person, that recruiter's in trouble. Because if you go back and say, hey, we want to hire you, and then the range is outside of their bandwidth, like now you just wasted everyone's time because that person's got to take the job. So you as a candidate want to make sure that that recruiter understands what you're looking for. So don't be afraid to bring up the compensation if they've never brought up compensation. Otherwise, you could be wasting your time as well too. So it's happening a lot more. Go ahead.
The flip side though, as
You saw the gears going.
You think you don't have any leverage, so it's like, why would I play this card when I have no leverage, when I'm still at like a recruiter screen? Like, I have no leverage now, so if I play the card now, well, then it's like a don't even see if you can push it.
Bring it up. Bring up. You're not negotiating. You're just clarifying what the compensation is, right? And they should have everything posted at this point, like legally, right? So if you don't know, make sure you understand what the range is, right? So that's what you want to do. Otherwise, you're going to go through this process, and then you just spend all this time, and then they're never going to pay you what you're looking for. So just make sure that's done. So let's say it's a publicly traded company. There's two numbers that you want to give that recruiter, or the recruiter should ask you. If your number is really high, they're going to go, is that total comp? Right? Yeah. They're like, and the recruiter will never, a good recruiter won't, like, will just keep a poker face. Like, oh, this guy's so good. I don't want to scare him away. Right. Yeah. So if I know that we're like behind in what their expectation was, I'm going to keep this going. If it's a really good candidate, I'm just going to figure it out down the road. As a recruiter, my job is to try to get to this person's number. Okay.
Yeah. So I think what I'm hearing is it's like, it's almost like it's something that's just clearing up in my head. They want you.
Yeah, dude.
Like, it's like, I know it sounds wild.
So it's just for the audience. Like this is like interviewing PTSD. This is like offer PTSD.
Yeah.
It goes from early in career to like executives. Like this is like interviewing, recruiting, offer PTSD. Just this whole thing. Like just trust me. This is not.
In my head, I'm like, oh man, like. But like the way you're describing it from what's happening on the other side is like, you know, they really, like you said, you have the leverage when they give you that offer.
Yeah, I'm communicating to you guys as an advocate for the job seeker, as an advocate for the company, and on that side of it, it's a little bit different. What I'm trying to teach, but I try to do it. I try to negotiate in good faith so that candidate will trust me. Like I had a lady at Microsoft who was going to her husband asking for like what she asked for, and I go, you're asking for too little. I go, what's going to happen is you're going to get in here, you're going to have a conversation with somebody, and then they're going to have like, you know, 40K more than you, and you're going to look at me like I'm the asshole, but you asked for this number. So if I see that they're asking for too little, which has happened, I go, I'm gonna give, and then I'm like, I'm gonna easily close this person because I'm gonna blow her mind with like the offer, but she's asking for too little for whatever reason. She just didn't know that was her value. But you can't look at that and be. So you were talking about you want to save earlier. You said, isn't your job to just kind of make sure that you save the company money, blah blah blah. I'm like, no, my job is to close the candidate, give that candidate a compensation that's going to make them feel good about it or excited about it, and then that's the retention plan too. Because if they discover that, you know, they were getting underpaid and their coworkers saw this, like, they're going to start looking around, and then they're going to look at you like you just screwed me over, right? So yeah, when you back to what you're saying, like, yeah, they want you, and they need to know what they have to do to close you, right? And so that's what you're telling them. Like you said, I'm the guy, right? Yeah. So, and that's all you have to say is like, this is just what I'm looking for. So treat it like, you know, you're going to go do an hourly job somewhere for like, you know, web design or something like that. What are you going to charge them? Are you going to take what they offer you, or are you going to tell them what your rate is, right? Like, this is what's going to cost for me to work like 60 hours and da-da-da-da-da, right?
As it relates to base versus stocks versus bonuses, what does that typically look like?
Okay, so
I'm wondering if you have any insights on that.
Yeah, so let's go back to when you're at offer stage, you're going to give the recruiter your base ask, and then you're going to give them your total comp ask. But what you need to find out from them is like, okay, hey, so you mentioned a couple things. You mentioned sign-on bonus. Not every company does sign-on bonus. That sign-on bonus stuff was just like when the getting was good, everyone's doing it. Like, I'm starting to see less of those now. Yeah. But what I still do is I tell every single client to ask for it anyways, right? I go ask for it. All they can say is no. So standard offer is base salary, right? And then, you know, if it's publicly traded, you know, stock. That's not always guaranteed anymore. And then something that you need to ask is there an annual bonus? right? So right around now, first quarter is when you do your performance review, and then you can get either a merit increase for performance, right? And that can be anywhere between like 0 to 10%, whatever. So you ask that question up front, is there an annual bonus? What you're trying to ask them is like, what are the different ways that I can make money besides just my salary? So if there's no annual bonus, then, you know, like Amazon doesn't have an annual bonus, right? So they have stock and they have their base salary, and that's it, right? So you have your base salary, probably annual bonus where you can get your merit increase. Then you have stock, either RSUs or options, right? Amazon gives you like direct like units, but most companies will give you stock options or stock. And the difference is options are you can buy our stock at a discounted price if you exercise them. Whereas the stock is like, we're gonna give you this much stock. They'll give you a value, right? So at the beginning, they'll go, we're gonna give you 100,000 shares, $100,000 worth of stock over like a 4-year vesting cycle or a 3-year vesting cycle, whatever that is, right? And then sometimes you get a sign-on bonus. So the sign-on bonus isn't a guarantee, but I would always encourage someone to always ask for that. Now, what's the sign-on bonus for? Sometimes the sign-on bonus it bridges the gap from what you were asking for in terms of like total comp or in terms of base salary, because it was always easier for me to get them more sign-on bonus or get them a sign-on bonus because they're on the hook one time, right? We'll just give you this. We're only on the hook for this for 1 year, but that salary, they're on the hook for however long you work there, right? So it's harder to get, you know, base up, and then stock. Usually, I know you just said that it's probably easier for them to get stock. Ownership into the company should usually be like a harder ask in some places, unless it's like non-public companies options. That's just monopoly money, right? Yeah. So here's how you gotta. So cash is king. So at the end of the year, you have to ask, like, you know, right now we're doing our taxes, right? You're like, what do you want to be like? What do you want to be paying? Like, what do you want to be paying taxes on? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and that comes from all those different forms, right? So I always tell people, ask for the money that makes you feel uncomfortable asking for it, and then try to get as close to that money as you can. Ask for that uncomfortable amount of money that you think that you deserve. So base salary, that's where you really want to negotiate hard and just ask for it, because once you get inside that organization, the only way that base is going to go up is through, you know, merit increase or promotion, right? Not hard work. You can work hard and still not get it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and your work doesn't speak for itself. You make sure it's documented, make sure those one-on-ones, you know, like it's clear. You're not just having like talking about your weekend, like make sure that it's clear, right? So hard work for sure. I know a lot of people that worked hard and still didn't get the increase that they want, and they were disappointed. So good point, but also doesn't always translate, right? So that's just like a public trading company. Those are all the elements, and you want to ask those questions. Do you have an annual bonus? What is that? And how is that based on my performance or the company's performance or both? These seem very standard, but it's good to kind of bring them out. And then, like I said, if they can't get to the number that you want, ask for a sign-on bonus. And the sign-on bonus, they'll either say yes, no, we'll meet you somewhere in between, you know, but you got to ask for it. So, and those are how you use those things. If they can't get you to the base that you want, just ask for it in that sign-on, so that at least you'll have that number for that year one. And then your job is to try to get promoted so that so you can get that compensation that you want. Because unless you're doing, you know, other like side projects, like this is how you're going to be paying your bills. This is like only access to you making money, right? So make sure it's what you want it to be.
Yeah. I want us to do a quick pivot,
Sure.
or a pivot to talk about personal branding as it relates to LinkedIn and the information that you should be putting on there. I know there's a lot of
Let me ask you guys this: how do you guys look at LinkedIn? Like, what I mean by that, when you think of LinkedIn, when you think about the next time you go looking for work, do you think, let me fix my resume or let me fix my LinkedIn?
I do fix resume first, and then I use some of the most impactful the really good stuff out of the resume, and then put it on LinkedIn.
Okay, and what about you?
Very similar.
Okay, why don't you like look at LinkedIn as the first thing that you update?
Because not all places would accept my LinkedIn profile as my CV or resume, but then resume is like, you know, it's a document. I know Well, maybe you can probably tell us this.
Yeah. No, I'm
Do
just.
ATS systems track LinkedIn profiles? Not at all.
Recruiters look at LinkedIn profiles. Hiring managers look at LinkedIn profiles. Let me ask you this: like, where do you think what's your biggest paranoia around applying for a job online? Where do you think your resume goes? What do you think is happening to it?
I think the resume goes into a system, and there are now probably AI, but in the past, like applicant tracking systems that are looking for keywords and stuff like that. And as you said earlier, there could be 500 applicants to one role, and then sometimes the resume might even get sent. But my whole aim is to try to get my resume on top of the pile as one of the most qualified ones for this role.
How do you guarantee that it's on top of the pile? How do you know?
I do not know. I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah. How many people are on the other side of that ATS looking at your resume?
At most one.
One or two.
How many people are on the platform called LinkedIn?
Couple 100 million.
900 million.
900.
Yeah. And why are people coming to LinkedIn? Like, are they coming there to post their vacation photos? Some of them are nowadays, but they're there because it's professional. So my point is this. So you're not you guys are, I think people look at it the same way. So the problem right now is people, so the 3 phases of job searching or being laid off, whatever, like everyone thinks it's something, they want to fix their resume first. So let's say we make your resume a perfect resume, right? Now you submit that perfect resume into the ATS, and now it's still in that, I call it a lottery system, right? So you have no way of knowing whether or not that recruiter looked at your profile in the ATS. Sometimes like an iCIMS will say like review, but you don't really know if that's accurate. Recruiters will put you in a status and you'll stay in there for perpetuity, depending on what it is. So you just don't know. You're hoping and praying, right? You think it's gonna, like, even if you apply first or whatever, all kinds of different things. You don't know. But you can for sure know when someone looks at your profile, right? And if your profile is built out, it's robust, looks like the resume that you're sending out, you can go out and reach out. You can reach out to a recruiter. You can reach out to a hiring manager, and it might not be the hiring manager or recruiter who's on the position you're interested in, but it's one of them. And they may ignore you, but they will look at your LinkedIn profile. And if all they see is job title, right, and then company, and then nothing there, like, you just miss an opportunity for eyeballs to get on your resume. So visibility is what you want. And you're someone who's giving yourself a lot of visibility through your thought leadership and your videos, even though it's probably that's not the intention. But I'm going to look at your LinkedIn profile. I'm going to see what you do. You're on a podcast with him. I'm going to look at your Zillow. I'm going to see what you do, right? I'm not looking for your resume. Where would I get your resume? And why would I even look at your resume? I'm just trying to see who you are. But now I see what you've done. Every single time someone's on this platform. So everyone's any recruiter, anybody's a hiring manager, anybody could be doing all the things that you want them to, you're trying to get people to look at your resume, right? But what if your LinkedIn profile is your dynamic resume that you're actively always, like, you're constantly posting and people will go and look at your profile. Every time someone looks at your profile, they're looking at your resume.
Yeah, it's like an evolving resume.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I mean, while your resume is like rotting in that applicant tracking system, waiting for some overworked or underexperienced recruiter to get to it, right? You are the perfect candidate for this position, but that recruiter doesn't get to it because you're wedged in there with 300, 400, 500,000 others, and it's a lottery system. So if you can kind of think of it that way, then you will look at your LinkedIn profile completely different. Okay, jobs, and I'm when I'm proactively looking for a candidate, I'm not looking in other people's databases. I'm barely looking through mine. I'm going on LinkedIn. I'm doing searches. I might go on GitHub if I'm ambitious, right? And I can't find someone and do that, but that takes a long time. I'll just do LinkedIn, and a lot of recruiters don't even know how to run a Boolean string. They just hit select certain things, filter, and then put, you want to do everything that you're doing with your resume, trying to make it ATS friendly, do that for your LinkedIn profile, and then put all your things in there. So that LinkedIn profile is you have 2 marketing, you're the product now, okay? 2 engineers, you're the product. You have 2 marketing materials, right? You have the resume, right, which is going to sit in the HR black hole, and you have the LinkedIn profile, which is on a platform of 900 million to a billion people. Which one do you think you have more control over in getting visibility to?
Definitely the LinkedIn.
The LinkedIn profile, yeah.
There you go. I just sold it, right?
Yeah.
Even though just LinkedIn, don't even think I'm trying to like advocate for you guys. I hate your product, but it's like it's the only game in town,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And and I'm gonna make it work for me, right? So think of it that way, because that's where you're gonna get seen, and so you have the ability to reach out versus just waiting for something to happen.
I had a question about the reaching out aspect, right?
Okay, cool.
As a recruiter, what type of messages do you like to receive, right? Regarding, like what information should go in there?
Yeah. Have you? Okay, so let's talk about like the pompous recruiter, the recruiter that loves to like talk about like, no, if you're a job seeker, don't ever send it. Don't ever those kind of recruiters always make me raise my eyebrows, right? And it's like I find it very like off-putting when they do that. Like I hate it when like candidates do this. I hate it when candidates do that. Like don't. So one of the things that I tell my clients, like I have like some Gen Z clients, and he's like, hey, I wrote this guy, but he didn't get back to me. Like he doesn't need to get back to you. Like he doesn't owe you a response. I go, you're making it. If you send them a message like, hey, do you have any openings for me that I'm a fit for? Dead in the water.
Yeah,
like
I also get. I'm not even a hiring manager, but I get that as a creator. Saying,
right? Hey,
I'm looking for some work. Can you give me work?
Yeah. Who are you? Like, so that's the thing. Like, don't go into it without a plan, without a strategy, without a like clear tactic.
Yeah.
Don't write them like long
Like
dissertations. Yeah. Don't give it like a mini Tolstoy novel, right? Like no one's gonna read it, and you're gonna get offended because you took all this time to work. Yeah, and even if you do put all the work and it is very targeted, and you're super happy about what you wrote, they don't necessarily have the time to read through it, and even if they do, if it's just a lot of information for them to process, and they don't necessarily like, we're looking for you in the first place. Like if you need something from them versus them needing something from you, it's gonna go unread, or if it's long or if it doesn't have a point. Do you want me to go into what I would advocate?
Yes.
Okay.
What would you like to see when someone messages you?
All right. So what I tell people when they're like, hey, I want to fix my resume. Great. I go, we can make this a perfect resume, but here's what's going to happen. So I give them the whole thing, the ATS black hole. I tell them all that. I go, how are you, what do you do? I go, what do you do after you apply? And they're like, nothing. I'm like, great. You just sit and wait, right? And then eventually you get a rejection notification. Why? What if instead you just started like, go on LinkedIn, use LinkedIn for what it's good for. Go to, Netflix or Zillow and look up, talent acquisition recruiter, tech recruiter, right? Sometimes if you're a product manager, look for a product recruiter. If you're early in career, look for a university recruiter. But how do I know this is the person that's working on the position that I'm applying for? You don't. Yeah. But so what you do is you write them first message. All three messages have a very similar format. Really short intro. It's an investigatory intro. Like, hey, are you the recruiter or the hiring manager in charge of this position? Put in the link to that position. If not, can you direct me to the right run? Or here's, I'm interested in this role. Here's 3 things about me. Straight up, 3 of your most like impactful bullet points, right? Did design this, launched this, did this, right? If it makes sense, let's book some time on my calendar so we can talk. Insert a Calendly link or tie to Cal or whatever it is. You want to make it easy for them. Close it. That short. Hey, are you this person? Here's what I'm looking for. Here are 3 things about me and why I can, I'm good for your opportunity. Let's get on a video call. Here's my calendar. You don't want that back and forth, right? Will they reply? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe they might ignore you, but guess what? They're going to click on your one of those 3 is going to click on your LinkedIn profile. So to the hiring manager, same thing. Hey, I'm not sure. Are you the hiring manager in charge of this position? If not, can you direct me to the recruiter or the right hiring manager? I'm really interested in this role. Here's how I can help your organization, with your goals. If you're the right person, it makes sense. So this is a call to action, right? Here's my calendar. Please book some time. So you're telling them what to do. You're asking them a question. Tell them who you are. Tell them what to do. Take total control of that. If they're going to ignore you anyways, they have everything they need. 3 things about you, link to your calendar, and none of like, hey, would you like to have a virtual coffee chat? None of that is going to work for you. And then the last person, hey, I see that you've been at, Netflix or Zillow for a while. This is one of my target companies. Here are 3 things about me. What do you like about this place? What do you like about Zillow? Would love to pick your brain. Would you mind getting on my calendar and let's talk for like 15 minutes? Like keep it at 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and that's it. And you're, showing that you want to kind of pick their brain, and that's it. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But what you have zero control over is what's happening with your resume in that ATS. You have absolute control. And that's why LinkedIn is like a powerful tool. And everyone's like, well, no one ever gets back to me. Like, send it and forget it.
Yeah,
like, just, I go send it with
numbers.
zero. I always like, I will have zero expectations. I go, but at least it gives you peace of mind that you've done everything that you could besides just sending your resume into this thing, because they're not going to see it. And then while we're on this subject, I'm going to go ahead and just pivot to referrals. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
When you have a referral, like someone inside the organization that can advocate for you, what do you two think happens when you go, hey, I want to apply for this position, and then someone inside there is going to refer me? What do you think is happening with your like resume or your application? Tell me.
If your resume shows up on the ATS system and the recruiter is reviewing it, they get to see that, oh, this person referred. And then maybe they can see some of the stuff that this person said about you in that referral. Knowing what you just said, notice I changed it to if it shows up, not when. I know some places may have certain, like a different queue for like referrals where, you know, there's a different track where all referrals will go in, and then they can then go look at it to decide whether it's worth pursuing or not.
Okay, what do you think? I mean, I'm sure he just biased you there, but what do you think happens with a referral when someone refers a candidate into a position? Like, what do you think is happening on the other side of that?
I think two possibilities. One possibility is there's a different line, there's a different queue for that, and like maybe internally there's a policy where like if you're ranking resumes with referrals get ranked higher just by default, because there's some nuance to that as well, because like the referral note in the referral might be a signal that they use to know like, hey, rank higher or rank lower, right? So that's one possibility. Another one is that, you know, it just falls into the system. There's really no actionability about it. There is no contract about what happened after like you've referred somebody. This is where I work at, that's in my experience. Like, a referral, not a referral. Like, okay, sorry. If it's a referral from someone that's super senior that's referring you, the recruiter takes that as a really strong signal, and then like that biases them very much. If it's a regular person that's maybe not like director level that's referring you, it's just like noise in the wind. It doesn't really do anything.
Yeah, so these are two separate people, two separate companies that are employed inside, and then I would challenge you guys to go to work on like, you know, Tuesday, whatever, tomorrow's a holiday, and find out like, hey, what is our referral chain of custody and process? So the two things I take from you both is there should be some type of not white glove treatment, but some kind of preferential treatment for a referral, right? And so that ideally should be what happens, but sometimes candidates or recruiters get referred like random people, right? Like, and they're not a fit. But even when they give you a link and you're updating it, depending on what the applicant tracking system is, right? It will say, like if it's ISIM, it'll say internal referral, and an internal referral in a sea of 500. If I'm busy, I'll miss that sometimes. So the reason I brought that up is I want you to advocate. I want you to use your referrer differently. So if you get someone who says, I'll refer you, go great. Could you also tell me who the hiring manager is on this position and who the recruiter who's assigned to this? And then tell them that, I know you're busy. I'll follow up with them, you know, via LinkedIn or whatever, you know, in a week if I don't hear from them. So you take that off their plate. They might be like, oh, I feel weird giving it to you. Just go, don't worry. I'm just going to ask for a follow-up. And they should be doing that for you if it's someone you know, right? So if you get someone who's like you're close with, you worked before, they can advocate for you, just ask for those two things, because what's going to end up happening is you get into the referral system, and sometimes it's no better than if you just applied yourself, right? Yeah. You know, yes, you're internal referral, but they're not all giving you white glove treatment. Sometimes people just don't even, you know, I just referred somebody to a director of SEO, and he emailed that resume to the hiring manager and the recruiter directly, and my client still hasn't gotten a call back yet, right? So I told him, like, don't worry about it, we'll follow up with them, right? And that's like from a director to their subordinate, and they still haven't got that. So yeah, ideally the internal referral should be something where you're giving attention to that individual. Otherwise, because the old statistic was that a lot of like 33% of hires come in from like internal referrals, and those are good numbers, right? So you want that to be high. So people are going to keep referring you people if you ignore their candidates, right? Or their referrals. But sometimes people will refer you to a position that you're interested in, but it's not their division or their department. They're like, sure, I'll get you in there, but I don't know anyone in there, right? So your job is, if you have someone on the inside, just get the name of the recruiter and the hiring manager, and then you can just ping him on LinkedIn yourself. Like, hey, I just applied and I was referred for this position. Just want to introduce myself. No harm, no foul, right? Just keep it simple, keep it light. Don't be aggressive. Just be polite, right? That's it. And so that is a very, very, enviable entity to have to get into a company, a refer, but don't waste it by just letting them like submit you and then thinking that you're gonna get this white glove treatment, because most of the time it won't happen, right? So I wanted to say that, because a lot of times people underutilize the referrer, or they just go, great, I've referred, but get the name of the recruiter and the hiring manager. You want to get to that hiring manager. That's your goal. That's your only goal.
Okay. Wrapping up with the final segments. Want to talk about some things that you think may be overrated or underrated as it relates to hiring, especially now in 2020, where there's a lot of, sorry, not 2020, especially now in 26. We are recording this in January 26. It'll probably come out sometime a little bit later. But yeah, what are some of the most underrated things that you see people not doing that you think they can be doing, especially for job seekers?
Okay,
now?
So we already talked about one, which is like LinkedIn, right? Keeping your LinkedIn profile updated, making sure that your LinkedIn profile looks like the resume that you're sending out to, that you're applying online with, because you're going to get more visibility with it as a LinkedIn profile, because you can be proactively reaching out to recruiters and engaging. And if you're posting, you're obviously bringing more attention to yourself through that process. Even if you're working and you're afraid of updating your LinkedIn profile because you don't want your coworkers or boss to see you're updating, if you're in an environment where you're afraid to do that, maybe that's not the right environment for you. I say that with a grain of salt, but also get a premium account, put that you only want recruiters to be able to see any updates that you make. So do that, but no one's going to advocate for you better than you should advocate for yourself. And in this day and age where layoffs and terminations are happening as if it's a business practice, why are you loyal? Why are you loyal to anyone but yourself? So that's the one, the underutilization or the lack of utilization or the lack of understanding of how to use LinkedIn as a dynamic resume marketing tool. And then the most overrated thing, you didn't ask me that, but the most overrated thing that job seekers can think of is updating their resume and thinking that's going to change their situation. All you did was create a better resume that still doesn't get seen. So I tell people, I'll make your resume better. Well, I don't do it. I always do your own resume. First of all, do your resume, get a resume evaluation, from a recruiter or whatever, but you write your resume, and if you're going to use ChatGPT to do it, read what it did. Okay. And then make sure it's in action, problem, result, my methodology, because that will tell your true story. So update your resume, but don't think that it's going to change your situation in terms of getting you more interviews. It's going to be about how you bring visibility to that resume. So however that looks, right? So those are two things. Keep going.
Do you actually want to just do a quick, because one of the things you mentioned is use ChatGPT, but something really exciting that I've seen, you built, is the Atix 180 GPT.
Oh yeah.
Do you want to talk a bit about that? I can talk a bit about my own experience using it.
Okay.
I think I have a really good resume.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I found with using the GPT, and you put your resume in, it takes a while to get your stuff, because obviously it's doing a lot of stuff behind. But what you get is very, very clear. So it talks about the APR, the action, problem and result. It helps you reframe your resume to be a lot more solid. So for example, my resume, one of the feedback he gave me was I see a lot of impactful work, but you're not doing anything on your resume to help the recruiter know where to place you. So what that was telling me was my resume looks like I might be a platform person, I might be a software engineer, I might be a data engineer, I might be an analytics engineer, but it's not obvious to the recruiter where to place me. So what that means is the recruiter gets my resume, thinks, what is the right role? And the fact that they have to think about like where's the right place to put this person
right.
already puts too much work on them. So that's one of the things that like
Yeah.
the GPT. So you want to talk a bit about like
Yeah.
about what you built and
I love it. So what he's talking about is I created my own GPT. It's called Haddix 180, which is the name of my company, Haddix 180 Career Engine. And what I created this for was sometimes people don't want to pay for advice, but they still want it, right? Mm-hmm. So what I did was I built this and I use a lot of references. So I put in several I removed names and companies, several engineers that I interviewed. So I do like before and after of their resumes, and then my written feedback. So I basically gave GPT all these reference points from the last year of me just interviewing early in career to executive. So what I did was I stress tested it over and over again so that it sounds like me, but without the humor, right? Mm-hmm. So if you were to ask me, what can I do to fix my resume? What can I do even if you don't know what to use it for, you can just go, I need help. And then the GPT will respond and ask you questions like I would ask you questions. So things that you described sounds like what I would have said. Yeah. So it's really good. So you're actually the second person that's used it. I only have one client who's using it right now. So you're the second one. You'll be the third one if you use it. Absolutely. But I would add, so it's a tool that you can use. I'll make it public probably in a couple of weeks, but you can go to it and ask it questions around how to make your resume better, help you with how to answer behavior interview questions. Like you can upload your resume, and then you can upload a job description that you're interested in and go, hey, can you create 7 behavior questions for me? And then in a separate chat, can you frame the most optimal responses based upon information that I have on my resume? So then you'll go, it'll ask you a question like, hey, tell me about a time where you had to work across cross-functional teams and on an initiative, and then you will talk about it, and then you'll give your example, and then you'll look on the what the GPT said, like based upon your resume. So it's as good as your resume is good, right? Mm-hmm. So fix your resume first, then use it as that tool. So it can help you from start to finish. It'll help you with your resume. It can help you with interview preparation, story preparation, and then it'll help you with behavior interviews, and then it also helps you with your offers. Like you can put in like I said, all the parameters of your offers. It'll help you with startup offers, kind of like global enterprise offers, and then private equity offers too. So it'll help you all that. You don't even need me. That's the whole goal. Like if you don't want to talk to me and you want like my advice, you can use this GPT. And it's really good. And it's better than just using ChatGPT, because ChatGPT can take you, and it doesn't hallucinate, because I want it to kind of like keep aligned with these references points. And then another thing that you can do is I have a thing called it's called AI Fit. Mm-hmm. So I created this thing where I went and found I call them the Frontier 15. So everyone's talking about FANG. I go, well, how about you start preparing yourself for these AI companies? So I took 3 tiers: the foundational model companies like XAI, OpenAI, Mistral, and then took some infrastructure AI companies like NVIDIA, et cetera, and then some application companies. And then I did a research and found out like how they do their screening process, what their core values are, and then how are they interviewing. Just pull things from the internet, right? And I create like a 45 page document, and then I put that into the GPT so it references it. So when it looks at your resume, it can tell you what you can do to make yourself more AI ready, resume AI friendly, and then it can kind of screen you like how Anthropic screens different. Like they look for your ethical trade-offs, your AI safety, right? And then opposite of OpenAI, right? So it's good at that, because I want to advocate for people to start looking outside of FANG and start looking towards these AI companies and trying to get in and just really understanding how they operate. So if you haven't used that, try to see like, hey, how does my resume look against the AI company? What would be like, how would I prepare for an interview with any of these like top AI companies?
Do you have any final messages? Anything?
Yeah. The one thing that I want people to take away from is, as you go through this process of job hunting, job seeking, you're going to start asking for a lot of different advice from a lot of different people, because you're looking for the answer, and it drives people crazy, because by trade, if we're talking about engineers, even product people, you guys are problem solvers, right? Mm-hmm. And you can't solve for this problem of not getting enough interviews or not getting feedback or not getting some stuff. So it drives you nuts. And one thing that I want people to be is I don't want to say the word indifferent, but I'll say be agnostic to the results of the process. So if you get a rejection email without any context. Don't assume that you weren't qualified for that position, and don't allow it to kind of dictate how you feel about yourself value-wise. If you get ghosted, don't look at that as like something that kind of like one dictates like them not valuing you or your time. That is what that means sometimes, but don't look at it that way. Or even if you get laid off, like don't allow that layoff, especially that layoff. Don't allow that layoff to take away your self-esteem or allow that layoff to dictate your value. And then when you're applying for a position, just remember this. Don't think that all of a sudden the job that you've been doing for the last 8 years, 9 years, or 10 years, that you're suddenly not qualified for that job. You know, it's just a process. So be agnostic to the process, even if it's favoring you, right? Just have your own value. And then going back to what you're saying about when you're negotiating your offer, like it goes along, it's still the same thing. And you set that value for yourself. You don't let them set it. But that's the biggest thing though. Don't let the rejections, the ghosting, the terminations, like take you on these roller coasters, right? You know, and it's just, the process is definitely 100% broken. We're in the world of AI. Like I said earlier in the conversation, I started my career in 1999. You know what we were doing back then? We would get a job, write a job description, we post that job, people apply to that job. I reviewed the applicants, I interviewed the applicants, pass it on to the hiring manager, final round, give them an offer, they accept it. It's 2026, doing the exact same thing. We just have different tools, but nothing's changed in that process, right? So, and it's been over like 20 plus years. So nothing's changed, right? And we have, you know, we have AI now doing it, right? But nothing's changed. The whole thing, there's no innovation in talent acquisition and recruiting. You know, no matter how many times a recruiter or a recruiting leader will tell you they're innovative, there's no innovation here. It's just, it's pretty straightforward, okay? So don't let that process kind of dictate how you see yourself, okay?
Absolutely. I can't stress enough. Thank you very much for your time.
No, I'm really, I'm
really,
very
really
proud of you guys.
appreciate it.
Yeah, this is very good. I'm very proud you guys are doing this. And I think this is something that a lot of job seekers out there, tech or non-tech, need to hear. And I appreciate you guys inviting me on this podcast.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for
Thank
sure.
you.
Thank you.
This has been Beyond the Build. Thank you very much for watching, for listening, wherever you are. Like we mentioned in every episode, there is a form to ask us any questions related to anything that you want to hear. Please use it. Also, Akwe reads all the comments. Yeah, he does that. You know, comment anything, ask any questions. We do read those, and we also read the form. Thank you very much for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. Bye.